Time I'll call to order the February 3rd, 2014 City of Joliet Pre-Council meeting. Mayor Tom Girani presiding. Mayor.
Start with roll call. Mayor Girani.
Here.
Councilwoman Barber. Absent. Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman McFarland.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Odekirk.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman. Here. Councilman Turk.
Here. Just me mentioned Councilman Barber. I called her this morning, just check on her. She has a bad cold. I could hardly hear. She's going back to the doctor on Tuesday, and we didn't talk that long, but she doesn't sound too well. Anyway, Jim?
A couple of things tonight. First of all, if we could adjust the agenda a little bit, we have representatives here from the Joliet Slammers for a liquor commission hearing.
Okay. Jim?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The public hearing was held on January 22nd, 2014, with the issuance of new Class K liquor license for One Mayor Art Schultz Drive. Class K allows the sale of alcohol in the stadium. No citizens appeared in opposition. The applicant is Joliet Community Baseball and Entertainment LLC, DBA, doing business as Silver Cross Field. Majority shareholders have successfully passed their background checks, and since they do not live in the city of Joliet, they have named last as resident manager, who has also passed the background check. The building department said a yearly spring inspection will be scheduled prior to opening the field. All items on the list will be checked for completion at that time. There are no outstanding monies owed to the city. Building, police, and fire departments recommend approval of the license, and the liquor commission recommends approval.
This is the one that was in Levy's name before, and they no longer do the concessions, so they need the liquor license in there. In their name, correct? Yes. Any questions?
Can we do this today? A liquor license?
No.
No?
I think we passed an ordinance that everything's got to be voted on.
Oh, I thought liquor licenses didn't matter.
No,
All right.
no, I don't think so. Questions, comments?
I think you stole my thunder and just
Okay.
want to announce that League Restaurant's contract has been terminated. We look forward to taking over F&B operations within the stadium and serving the needs of our fans with our own company.
Very good, good. Good luck.
Good luck.
Jim?
A couple of things for the agenda tomorrow night. Under the consent agenda, we've got some position vacancies that we're recommending. One is a patrol officer position due to a disability-related retirement. Then there is a custodial, a part-time custodial position in administrative services, and we've had people, part-time people, kind of coming and going, so we're looking for authorization just to make sure that we've got so many hours budgeted in those positions, and we spread them amongst the various part-time people, and we have to keep under so many hours, so we like to make sure we have enough employees on a part-time basis and keep those positions filled.
Okay.
Under ordinances, 58-14. This is a petition for the United Insulated Structures Corporation. They've got about 220,000 square feet of cold storage right now in a warehouse building, and it's located on 28 acres, and this will become lot number one of the proposed subdivision here, and it allows for expansion of another 200,000 square feet if they want to. Lot 2 of the proposed subdivision will be an additional 22 acres and will remain available for future industrial use, which isn't known at this time. The development plans comply with the existing light industrial zoning, and it's in compliance with our South Side Comprehensive Plan. Of course, all public improvements would be in compliance with our codes and ordinances, and any sewer and water connection fees would be in compliance as well. There was a public hearing held on the matter on January 26th. Minutes of the meeting are attached, and the recommendation of the Planning Commission is to approve this business park subdivision.
Any questions?
Next item is 5914. This is a petition by AgriLoad Incorporated to vacate a 66-foot by 133-foot portion of the city center right-of-way. The vacation is recommended by our Public Works Department. As part of the petitioner's development, the adjacent site is a grain handling and storage facility. The small right-of-way portion doesn't serve any other adjacent user, and it will be allowed to consolidate with their adjacent property. Public easement will be needed as part of it so that we can maintain any underground utilities that are in the area. There's no negative impact from the utility companies as of the point of writing this staff report. Public hearing was held by Planning Commission. No one spoke, and they are recommending approval.
Any questions? Sure.
Jim, if we stay on this photo here, you notice debris in the roadway? Is that city street or is that state? I know it goes over the bridge.
The what portion?
If you look in the photo,
Yeah.
I've gotten a few calls when you come down the hill before you go over the bridge on McDonough. There's been a lot of debris, a lot of garbage, and it's kind of ironic that the photo shows it. Is that city maintained, state maintained? Is there any way we can get somebody to hit that with a street sweeper?
It is state right away. Staff is maintaining. So we, as such, we don't do maintenance on the state right away.
We maybe plow it, but we probably don't maintain it, yeah.
Not in terms of litter pickup.
Right.
Normally.
This just brings up an issue. Maybe the mayor or the city manager can send a letter to our state representatives, especially the senator and representative that represent that area. It seems as if there's an increase in debris and potholes in that area. I happened to attend the St. Pat's neighborhood meeting this last month, and it was brought up some traffic issues, but also with a lot of rubbish in the roadways there. I know we don't own it, but I like to see that we maintain that area for aesthetic purposes.
Certainly.
We can have Jim Trisno make a call, plus we can do a letter, Greg?
Yeah, we'll certainly get a letter out to the state.
Sure. Anything else? Jim?
Item 60-14 is vacation of some boarded up, dilapidated, or vacant properties, declaring them public nuisance at 702 Water Street and 111 Mississippi. It's proposed that the mayor and council declare the list of properties as public nuisance, authorize circuit application to circuit court for injunctive relief through code compliance or demolition. And we've got a couple of resolutions. 6214. This is in regard to the Illinois Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Act. Requires all insurance companies licensed to write a motor vehicle insurance coverage policy in the state of Illinois to pay into a trust account the equivalent of $1 per year per policy that they write. And that in turn is then distributed back to various cities and jurisdictions throughout the state of Illinois. This money does have to be spent in the area of auto theft, and since the time that this fund was established, we've utilized money to be expended on the Tri-County Auto Theft Unit. Grant funding for this year is $800,918, which will go towards supplying 2 officers and their compensation, and almost $100,000 to the actual daily operations of the Tri-County Auto Theft Unit.
Questions? Jim?
6314 is intergovernmental agreement with Will County 911 emergency telephone system, and this would be authorizing the purchase of radio communication computer equipment to be used by the Joliet Fire Department. Once we enter this agreement, we'll be eligible for $97,947 and some change. to purchase needed equipment.
Questions? Hearing none. Jim?
Then we have award of contracts, and these have been reviewed by committee, but there is one issue specific that maybe Councilman Turk can mention there was no recommendation on.
Your Honor, the committee met, Jim McFarland and myself, just prior to our pre-council meeting here. And there was 3 contracts on our agenda and a couple of change orders. We approved them all and recommend them for approval. The one we needed discussion on and some help from the entire council was Councilmember 6714, which was the purchase for public safety vehicles. The state bid was $31 lower than a dealership in the area for 14 vehicles. And they made some inquiries today to see if there was a way that we could keep it within the, within the city limits. This dealership is not in the city limits, but within the local area. There's a lot of discussion back and forth. Is it a quote? Is it a bid? And we actually just sent it to the full council to, we can ask Jeff some questions regarding the legalities of it and what kind of precedent would be setting if we did decide to not go with the state lower bid. And so I think that's where it's at right now.
Jeff, I know the city's policy is the lowest qualified bidder. How does this fit in with that? And are we opening up a can of worms or what here? Maybe give us a...
Well, this particular purchase, even though we call it a bid, really was not processed under our competitive bidding ordinance. That ordinance normally requires that we issue a legal ad and we send out written solicitations requesting that interested companies submit sealed written proposals or prices for various goods and services that the city may be interested in buying. And as a part of that written documentation that we send out to companies, we tell them how we're going to proceed in reviewing proposals. And we tell them that we will be making a decision based on the lowest price submitted by a responsible bidder. That's 90% or more of our purchases are done in that manner. We have other types of purchases which are not competitive bids. For example, professional services generally are not competitively bid through that process. Departments that need professional services may obtain quotes for engineering services or accounting services or sometimes legal services. And I think the basic reason for that type of approach for professional services is when you're buying certain things, price is always a factor, but it might not be the most important factor. If you're buying commodities and everybody is going to be selling the same basic commodity, then it makes sense to proceed on a price basis. If you're buying professional expertise, you're not buying based on price, you're buying based on your perception of that expertise. And so the city has always treated purchases differently. Some are competitively bid, some are purchased on the basis of quotations. This particular contract followed that latter course. And it's been our practice over the years that when we're dealing with the purchase of vehicles, public safety vehicles, that we kind of piggyback on prices that the state of Illinois is able to negotiate for the benefit of municipalities throughout the state. And interested car dealerships submit proposals to the state, and the state then makes a decision based on the lowest possible price that it's able to obtain for a certain type of public safety vehicle. And then what Joliet would do in those years when it needed to purchase vehicles, it would take that state number and then engage in essentially a phone quote type of solicitation where we ask local dealerships to submit a proposal based on the type of vehicle that we want. And then we compare that to the number that the state has obtained for the benefit of all the cities in the state. And so our history in shopping for and purchasing public safety vehicles has been not to follow the competitive bid basis, but to follow the quotation, where rather than send out written requests for proposals where we tell the bidders that a sealed bid would be required and that we're going to proceed on a bid basis, we don't do that when it comes to public safety vehicles. And the reason why I go through that explanation is because you did not use the formal competitive bid process, we have not made any legal promises to anybody regarding how it is we're going to decide to make this purchase. That is a business judgment that the city has reserved for itself. And so what you have here is a purchase of, I believe, 14 vehicles. The state process has generated a number, and our local shopping process has generated a very similar number, $31 difference on a purchase of $382,000. I can't even do the math, but it's 0.1% or less or whatever. So the numbers are virtually identical. And so because you have reserved the business judgment in making this purchase, you're free to, if you want, to determine that there are other factors in addition to price that are important to you and to the community.
This will not, the way I understand what you just said, will not go against our policy and what we've been doing, because it wasn't a formal bid.
Right. It will not. It does not violate our ordinance. It does not violate any representation we made to any company. That is not to say that there might not be a perception among people who submit proposals to the city that they expected it to be on a lowest price basis. I think, but we've never said that to anybody. And what you have here is a $30 difference on a $380,000 purchase. It really is de minimis.
The reason I brought it up is quite a while ago, we had a similar situation. Asked if it's mandatory that we give it to the lowest bidder, because we had a local bidder that was a little bit higher, and you told me at the time, if it's bid, you have taxpayers' money, you have to give it to the lowest bidder. But what I'm hearing now is this is not the case.
Well, it all depends on how we enter the marketplace, because really that's all. We're a market participant. We're buying goods and services. If we go out into the marketplace and we tell companies, we're going to do a sealed competitive bid process, give us your best number, we'll keep it confidential, and we'll make an award based on that number. If we tell everybody that's how we're going to proceed, then that's how we have to proceed. But if we don't tell everybody that, then we've reserved the authority for ourselves to make a business decision we think is best for the people in the community.
Okay, very good.
Mayor?
Sure.
Jeff, the low bidder by $31 is Morrow Brothers. Did they come, were they a direct contact with us with the number, or did they come through the state program? And if they came through the state program, was it specifically for this bid?
You know, I don't have all the details. It's my understanding that we have a base number we get from the state, and then we customize the vehicle to our own needs, whatever the police department thinks is appropriate for that year. And then I don't know if we go back to the state dealership and get a quote for that basket of options or not, but it would be the same process we follow with everybody.
Typically, the state puts together in their official, they go out to formalized bids, and they'll have a base police car, and then they'll have packages of options, you know, option 1, option 2, option 3, and they'll have specific quotes on that package of options. So then we can say we want to buy that base police car with options 1 and option 2. And then when we do our process, we say, here's what we're looking for. Here's all the options, you know, the base plus all of these options, so that we're comparing apples to apples.
Well, and the reason I ask where each of these came from, if I was understanding it, I certainly am somebody who thinks that public bodies, be it the city of Joliet, school districts, park boards, should spend and hire local where possible. because it's our tax dollars. So it should go back. I mean, there's no reason for us to send our hard-earned tax dollars that we're spending on our tax bill downstate. But I just want to make sure we don't chill the competitive bidding process.
Right.
And that's a tall order over a $31. I mean, it almost seems like we shouldn't be discussing it because we have somebody local and it's $31. I don't think you can feed a family of 6 at McDonald's for 31 anymore. But by the same token, I don't want to chill it. I wanted to get a feeling for who would drop out of the bidding process in your estimation, and, in your best professional opinion, when you look at the list of bidders you gave us. If they said, well, the city won't give it to us if we're $50, $500, or $5,000. Do you understand what I'm saying?
One of the things that you could consider is if you are going to, in this kind of scenario, if you're going to award it to other than the lowest bidder for business purposes and best for the residents, that it be no more than a certain percentage over that low bid, so that you don't, so that other bidders don't think, oh, well, the fix is in, the local guy's gonna get it no matter what he bids. And you don't want the local guy to feel that way either, because that he'll get it no matter what he bids. You want to have a competitive price, and because a lot of these bids aren't necessarily always against a state contract that we have. So you can look at that kind of policy, that it be no more than a certain percentage, when the state contract's involved, than that state contract, to make sure people will still compete and try and beat that bid price.
And I think that's a good approach, Jim, because then other bidders from around the state, around the Chicagoland area, will still bid in the future if they say, well, it's got to be 3% or 5%. That's $500 or $1,500. We can deal with that. So we probably do need, as a council, to discuss that then. If we decide to go in a certain direction on this contract, we probably need to codify it in the future for those that aren't closed seal bids, that we have that option, but within a preset window so competitive bidders can understand what they're bidding against.
Anybody else? Okay.
Mayor,
Sure.
I just want to, for the record, I was informed today that 40% of Ron Tirapelli's staff are Joliet residents, even though Ron Tirapelli's from Shorewood.
Mayor, police department does not care who you award it to.
Just want the cars.
Don't table it.
Just don't table it.
It's not that they just want the cars, but if they are not ordered before the end of February, we won't get them, because the production line for the Taurus converts to police cars for like 3 weeks, and that's it. So if you don't get your order in, you don't get one this year.
Okay.
All right. Loud and clear.
Okay.
Next.
Well, that's really all we have outside of, I think the city attorney has a request for closed session to discuss litigation. The other thing I just want to mention, and I'll mention it again tomorrow night, that as you know, we've had lots of snow, and we're trying to budget ourselves on salt usage because of the availability. But I want to thank the Public Works employees out there plowing, and the fleet maintenance who's working hand in hand with the plow trucks. And also we look for the cooperation of residents. We're still finding a lot of cars parked on the street during these snowstorms, snow emergencies, and they can be and have been ticketed because they need to be off the street during these snow emergencies. Also, when people are clearing their driveways, like with a plow, and they're pushing it across the street, push it all the way across the street and up over the curb so that it doesn't, and that usually happens after our plow truck's gone through. So then the residents in the subdivision, it's just polite for them as well as a safety concern.
Along those same lines, I got an email from somebody, and I forwarded it to Chief Benton about cars that been there 5 or 6 days in a certain subdivision, and asked them to look into it.
We haven't been towing vehicles at this point, but we've been ticketing them.
Mayor?
Sure.
Good, Mayor. Jim, on the heels of what you've said, I've got some calls too. Not a lot, to be honest. our staff with the limited personnel and trucks that we have. For our 4 new trucks, I know I talked to Mike Ulitz about that. That's not us, that's the manufacturer getting us the 4 new trucks. But I did get a few concerns and calls and actually traveled out throughout the district to look and so forth. And in the situations where you could see the reason that it wasn't plowed in a certain area, you could see where there had been a car there, probably during the plowing.
Right.
I'll tell you what, bar none of maybe 7, 8 different residents, they want to see a more aggressive ticketing, even of their own neighbors. And I said, well, remember, if you run in to get your, because you forgot your wallet to go get your gallon of milk, that's fine, that's on me. They're getting frustrated, not with our department, as far as the streets department, because they know that, I explained to them, you have to take a wide, swath. You can't just go right up to the back of the car and then, oop, move over. You're going to miss 30 feet, 35 feet on either side. And with that said, the other thing, too, that we're working with, I just wanted this for public, for those watching the meeting, we have gobs of snow out there. We've got mountains of snow. There's been a couple of situations where bus stops, and I know traditionally we say, let's work together and have the residents dig out. I did drive past one bus stop where literally the mound is about 13 feet high. I don't think I have the energy to dig out. But I want to let the folks know they've been heard by myself. I think there's some other people on the council that have talked to them, and that we're working with in these unusual situations, we're working with the streets department. We got another storm coming tomorrow, and we're working with the streets department to try to address those bus stop issues. And when it comes to the kids, that's not being ignored. We're going to do our best to see what we can to clear that up.
Your comments about the neighbors getting the tickets. A few years ago, we were at a neighborhood meeting, and they were complaining about speeders, and the police told them, it's probably your neighbors. So they went out and started writing tickets. The next neighborhood meeting, people were complaining, hey, I got a ticket. So it usually is the neighbors. Yeah, right.
Be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, right. Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, on a different, streets, but a little different subject. I know who wants to take this, either Jim or Jeff. But since the notices went out for special service areas to do streets and curbs and aprons on the driveways, I've gotten a couple calls from folks that don't quite understand it, the $300, and if they're on a corner. In particular, there's this one home, and I tried to explain it to the lady as best I could. She'd understand because she's the only address that faces the street. And I tried to explain to her that even though the other houses don't have her street address, they still have to pay for the side. So if you could just give a brief explanation on that program that we have. Who wants to tell? I mean, Jim's not here, so I was going to have him do it.
Well, I'll take a shot. I think since 2003, if not a little bit before that, it's been the policy of the council that as we do neighborhood improvement projects and we come in and convert streets from chip and tar streets to fully reconstructed modern streets with curb, gutter, and storm sewer, that homeowners that reside on the street would typically only pay $300 for that project. And if you happen to live on a corner, that $300 becomes $450 if we do both of your frontages. Or under no instance would a homeowner be required to pay more than $450, even if they were involved in more than one project because they had frontage on more than one street. Rental properties are treated a little differently. Those are traditionally viewed as business properties, and so they did receive a subsidy from the city council, but not a full subsidy of the same magnitude that the homeowners would receive. And we also try to treat single-family properties. That subsidy would also apply to 2 units and 3 units as well, because a large part of the older part of Joliet, where you have an owner-occupied structure, there may be an additional unit on the property, but it is an owner-occupied home. And so the subsidy, the homeowner subsidy, would apply to those as well. Homeowners who are in these projects that have difficulty with the $300 can make arrangements either with the city collector office or with the legal department, and we'll make payment and arrangements appropriate for your family and try to work with you.
And the other question that came up is in the past when folks wanted their sidewalks done, they had to get a petition going and get their neighbors. So the question was brought up as well, can they get their sidewalk done as well? It's a 50-50 program.
Different program, a different funding source, and actually an older program. The city, and I don't know what the budget is for this year, Jim Tristan would have to answer that, but over the years, we have had funding available to replace or construct sidewalks in front of your home, and a city contractor is engaged for that purpose, and the city will pay half and the homeowner pays half.
Because they wanted it done when their street was being done. Is that possible?
Councilman
Well,
Kluman.
I believe it can be done.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff. Councilman Kluman, yeah, we do offer that with all the roadway projects,
know Greg was
the
here.
50/50 program for the sidewalks.
So it could
At
be
the
done
same
in
time.
conjunction with getting the street done?
Yeah, it's done at the same time. yeah.
Okay, then I just want everybody to, for clarification, so that when I go back and call these folks, in case they're not watching, I
Yeah,
got it down.
letters will also be sent out to all the property owners on the streets that we'll be doing this year, informing them of the sidewalk program.
Well, people are reading the paper because read the paper and they saw those notices and my phone started ringing, so just wanted to get it explained. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Roger Thompson, 1110 Nicholson. I wondered if any of that's extended to sidewalks, because my block is checkerboarded with sidewalk, no sidewalk, sidewalk telephone pole, sidewalk steps, or no sidewalk with steps. And it would be nice if there were, they come, fortunately, my house is the sidewalk. But a nice wide sidewalk, and then they have to go out in the street. They typically are forced out in the street because the sidewalks are inadequate. And I was just wondering if there's any code adjustment or inclination to start to require any improvements like sidewalks everywhere.
We have not traditionally required sidewalks with the roadway improvement projects. Those properties that sort of have had sidewalk and don't have sidewalk in the older parts of the city, we have not required that, but we do offer the 50/50 program as an incentive to try and get those property owners to participate.
So the next question, is it advisable to try to encourage that in some way, to have the sidewalks everywhere in the city?
Roger, we can encourage it, but we don't mandate it, so, yes, we can encourage it, absolutely.
Right, okay,
Yes.
just asking.
The only other thing, we have two citizens to be heard
Sure.
this evening. First is Amy Sanchez of 110 Faust Avenue.
Good evening. My name is Amy Sanchez. I reside at 110 Faust Avenue in Joliet, and I'm coming before you to speak on behalf of Unity Community Development Corporation. We are a 501c3 not-for-profit entity created as a result of the Quality of Life Plan in 2006. So I just wanted to give you a little background. I stumbled across Unity CDC in a time where my only concern in life were working a job that barely made ends meet after I relocated back home to Joliet from Indianapolis. I was living with a relative, and my options for childcare after school for my four school-age children were very slim after work. I felt stuck, and I had made a mistake in returning back home to Joliet. I walked in the doors of Unity because I had a need, and that need was met by the Center for Working Families. The arms of Betty Gavitt wrapped around me and my four boys right where we were standing in our need. As I researched the after-school program, I stumbled upon the Quality of Life Plan. I read it thoroughly, the executive version as well as the extended. I felt moved and motivated, so I dusted off an old photo album that was my little keepsake of articles of a much younger Amy Sanchez, who was an advocate during the anti-gang crusade. I remember the leaders who taught me and mentored me, and I wanted to know more about this Unity CDC and what it stands for. After meeting with the executive director and several other leaders in the Northeast Side community where I grew up, we started the Collins Street Neighborhood Organization. Over the last 4 years, this neighborhood organization, as well as others in the 4th and 5th City Council districts, sprouted up. We were mentored by older neighborhood organizations such as the Cathedral area and the St. Pat's, and we all worked together for a better quality of life in Districts 4 and 5. We promote and drive the Quality of Life Plan in all of our actions, and we've had many one-on-one as well as group roundtable discussions with members here of the City Council, different city leaders, and each other. We meet monthly at the end of each month. Now today, we are planning strategically, not just the city council, but also in our neighborhood organizations. Different school districts are planning strategically. And as a gatekeeper of the quality of life plan that called for specific plans of action, actually over 75 of them to be exact, we are kind of cautioned and maybe paused a little bit. My concerns, like many other neighborhood council leaders, and I'm sure residents all over the city of Joliet, is what is different about the strategic planning that the city council is engaging in next week compared to plans of years past, and what actions are going to take place to execute not just the new strategic planning that you may come up with, but also to incorporate the quality of life plan, whereas not all of the actions have been fulfilled, the 75 actions. Those are the concerns that we have. I'd like to know a little bit more about this strategic planning session that City Council is going into, and I would request and ask that this council implement that quality of life plan and follow through with those actions that we all agreed to back in 2006 and 2007. They may need to be updated, they may need to be expanded, and not just the quality of life plan, but the openness and transparency of the strategic planning. I'm not sure, the newspaper was kind of vague. They said that there will be public input, but then there was very limited. We're not very sure if the strategic planning session is open to the public, if you're engaging members of community leaders or citizens to be involved in that strategic planning session. And so those are our questions. I bought copies of the executive session, the executive version of the quality of life plan, if anybody would like to take one back with them. We also have the CMAP and ULI proposals as well, that for the correctional center and the U.S. Steel site as well. This city council not only agreed to have this, accept this grant, but also agreed with the framework on it as well. And I think it's important as a city council that we accept ownership and responsibilities, not just of the ULI plan, but of the quality of life plan to execute as we strategically plan and move forward.
Mayor? Oh.
I don't think there's any restrictions with what we're going to do. We're going to take everything into consideration and come out with.
Yeah, the strategic plan is really for the city council and the staff. Unlike a community visioning process, which would sometimes take almost a year, where you bring in members of all of the interested parties and interested groups and try and create something for the entire community. This is going to be a bit more focused on areas of the city's responsibility, legally and financially, and help us focus on directing and annually budgeting our funds, our limited funds, towards those projects and objectives that will help us reach the goals that the council decides are a priority for the community. And this is obviously based on their experience as a council member and the feedback that they've heard from their constituents. Something what you're maybe referring to is much broader and much wider, and maybe something that comes out of the strategic plan, that they want to do that process. And so that'll be part of discussion. It's obviously a open meeting and has to be posted as such, and part of every open meeting, the council policy is to include comments from the public, but it's not really an inclusion of interaction in the process itself.
Okay, with that being said, I would be reluctant if I didn't mention that we skirt around the notion that our District 4 City Council person is not here for whatever the reason, and we all have applauded our at-large council persons for picking up the weight and the burden of that. But with that being said, the words and the terms urban redevelopment and urban planning are not something that we talk about very often as a city council. And we would just remind that during the strategic planning session, there is a large amount of money that's been put into these plans that already exist, and urban redevelopment is key to the city's overall future, not just financially, but as a successful city with the crossroads and cross sections of the communities that we serve.
Right.
So thank you, and I'm going to give this to the clerk to pass up. Thank you.
Amy?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad you brought that up. as one of the founding members of the original task force, that was done at a time, of course, when things were very prosperous in town, and we did spend a lot of money on the strategic plan. As we meet here next week, I'm glad you brought this up, because we have to list what we think we need to speak about, and this was one of my priorities, that we need to come back and look at what has come out of it and what we need to do as a council now that things are getting a little bit better, but also to incorporate in our budget to follow through with some of the problems that were identified in that original task force. And now the good things that have come out of it
Right.
were the Unity CDC, and we were able to bring all the neighborhoods together, districts 4 and 5. That was a long process, difficult process, but we made it happen. And I'm glad that a lot of the neighborhood organizations are coming together now. But as you stated, we have a long way to go with that plan.
Absolutely.
And now that we're doing another strategic as a whole, I mean, the council as a whole has never really done a strategic plan, to my knowledge, since I've been on here. But I would like to take that and bring that up forward and take some things in there that we can possibly do as part of our strategic plan for the future to move forward. And I know that Unity's had some bumps along the way as well, but we've survived that, and we have to move forward definitely with these projects.
Absolutely, and we would just want to say that as a community organization, we are all volunteers as well. We're all pushing this agenda forward, we're pushing this plan forward, all on a volunteer basis, and that's huge. That's huge and monumental, and we're raising funds the best we can, and we're encouraging people to become civically engaged, and we're expanding during a time that it's been stressful. So we appreciate you taking all of this into consideration and definitely planning, strategically planning with an urban redevelopment in mind. Thank you very much.
And I appreciate all the folks that have dedicated their time and volunteerism, because if everybody just went away, we wouldn't have Unity that we have today. So I appreciate everything that all the volunteers have done. They work very hard.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Jim?
Are you leaving us? You're not leaving, are you?
No,
Oh, all
I'm
right.
just passing out.
Just a couple comments. First one is, I want to thank you for the courage in coming here speaking on this issue. One of the things that I heard in the last campaign was the fact that this council and some of my predecessors seemed to invest money in studies, like the one that was done in 2007, and there's been some positives. But something that I think that we need to be clear on is, as Councilwoman Quillman indicated, is this council now finally is going to have a blueprint and a map of where the future is going to bring us, starting to align our initiatives with our budget. I don't know how we've taken a study and a plan and have not funded it. We've basically given you guys a blueprint. We've not allowed you guys to implement it. We haven't given you the resources you need. I'm looking at it now, and there's a commitment of about $500,000, which was to be shared by your nonprofit in the cities. And I don't think we've reached out to work with you guys to raise some capital for yourselves. So I think as we go back as a council and we try to look at strategic planning initiatives, I know this is something that I also wrote down on my initiative, that we need to look at District 3 and 4, because there's not a lot turning around. We talked about last month, 4 and 5. I'm not a numbers guy. We talked about the steel mill last month I brought up. We had 2 potential developers that we cannot do anything with because their hands are tied. We need to get talking about this. We need to get our local officials on board. We need to start lifting up our bootstraps and cutting corners and looking to see how we can fund initiatives that are going to help our residents that are in these 2 districts. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. We have a study, and we need to start implementing the measurements that they're requiring of us to make the quality of life better. And I don't see that we're doing that. So hopefully this plan will help. I don't want you to feel as if, we don't want public input, but this session is really for the council to get a blueprint of where we want to go for initiatives like this, and really looking to see how we can align city services with budgeting procedures.
I'm glad you
that
mentioned that. Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because there was an extensive study of the CMAP and ULI study that had quite extensive public input on it from not just the residents, but the business owners in specifically the Collins Street area for that specific study. And I would definitely want to make sure that whatever this council's blueprint is, takes into consideration the work that was already done. So we're not reinventing the wheel and redoing a lot of that services. It was just, that's pretty recent in 2011, that U.S. Steel site, there was a quite extensive study, and if this particular study was a grant, had it been translated into dollars, I'm not exactly sure how much that would have cost, but we don't want to put that to the side for any other reasons. We definitely want what the public's interest is and the residents and the community's interest is in that area as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Amy, I also want to compliment you, and thank you for coming forward. I agree with Councilman McFarland and Councilwoman Quillman, and one of my goals going into this planning session is to make sure that our resources are spread out throughout the city. I think, and I know Councilman McFarland, you've spoken about this, that maybe there's a tendency for some of the council to focus on a couple specific areas of the city, and we spend a lot of money on a couple specific areas. And I think it's important to realize that there's more than just a couple pet projects or downtown, and the money and the resources need to be allocated across the city. I couldn't agree with you more. And to be frank with you, I think you and Unity CDC and the neighborhood groups deserve a lot of credit. As you know, I was a policeman in this town for 10 years. When I left in 2003, I think most of the neighborhoods on the east side were in much worse shape than they are now. So credit to you, to Mac Willis, to everybody, the neighbors who have gotten together and decided they're going to make a difference. But I do think it's incumbent on this council to meet you and work with you going forward.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming
We
forward.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Just one thing, Councilman Coleman mentioned that when this was done and we made the commitment for the money, that things were a lot better than they are now, and we did deliver. I know back then we even give $1 million a year to the schools with the understanding if the economy went bad, that would be taken back. So do we have the money to refund this? I don't know, but we'll just have to take a look at it. Anybody else? Sure.
Sure. Again, I would thank you, Amy and Mac, everyone. It's truly, sometimes a thankless job, and you're doing it as volunteers, like you said. Sometimes I'm the direct guy, the blunt guy, the bearer of bad news. Councilman McFarland, if I remember, correct me with the terminology, when you ran on a zero budget concept. And zero budget means, you see, right now, not only do we have less of a purse than we had, I think, when the previous council did this, we need renewal even beyond the obvious spots. Like you said, downtown or some of the older aging portions of town. You take District 1, nobody would think you need renewal in District 1. One subdivision currently has 86 vacant foreclosed homes. One subdivision. We have more of a need for renewal, whether it be residential, commercial, industrial, throughout the city now than we did back then, and we have less money. So I certainly want the community to participate and the community leaders. I do agree, and I can't remember which council member just brought it up. It's all, it seems like putting the cart before the horse when you do studies for expansion or renewal without first putting together some kind of general budget. We have $1 to spend. Well, I guess we don't need a study. We have $1 million to spend. Okay, we'll do a study. To do a study and get everybody's hopes up and say, look, if we only had 50 million, we don't. So let's take it back a few notches, figure out what we can afford on, quality of life, renewal, nuts and bolts that our city manager, day-to-day obligations he has to meet. That's an economic plan, and that's what we're supposed to be working on in our Economic Development Committee. We don't have any roadmap on that. We have a big wish list, and now some people are feeling let down, I think. Am I not right? That we've just never been able to follow through on that original wish list that was presented as much more than a wish list. And so I guess what I'm saying is I want to give it all. Everything that was in the study that you're referring to, if we can pay for it. That's the other part that all of us seem to maybe sometimes ignore is how are we going to pay for it?
Sure.
So, but otherwise you have my support.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Jan?
I just want to reiterate, as you suggested earlier, but I don't think people are watching, they didn't quite hear. This study was done with the input of many, many people. I can't tell you how many meetings we had throughout the neighborhoods for districts 4 and 5. And these studies were based on public input. So whatever we discussed at our strategic planning, which are open meetings, this isn't something the council made up. This came from the people that actually live in districts 4 and 5.
And just for clarity too, I just handed out, for anybody that may be watching and anybody in the audience, I just handed out 2 separate plan. One is a quality of life plan that the city accepted and adopted, and that's a plan. And the other one is the panel study, the CMAP and ULI study. So there's 2 separate things that I just passed out of that. So thank you all very much. We appreciate it. And if we could get some open dates for this open meeting, the dates and the times. Yeah, I know the Herald News printed the dates, but not the times and the locations, because we do plan on attending the open meeting sessions for strategic planning.
I believe they're February 11th and 12th at 6 o'clock.
At 6 PM?
At the
Fire station number 1.
Fire station number 1
Okay.
headquarters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Roger?
Right, I would just like to add that I think that, you know, the city council is doing some progress toward tourism in the city, and I think that's way in the right direction, because I think that'll bring money in. And I think, though, that the whole city, no matter what district it is, what it looks like, it's going to make a big difference. When people come here, we want them to feel the warm fuzzies. And downtown, absolutely, we need that, you know, but, and the traffic thing that you're bringing up, very good, excellent stuff.
Sure. Thank you. Anything else?
We have one other citizen who's asked to speak, Ronald Korecki.
Correct?
Correct?
Correcty? I don't, he's not stepping forward, so.
That's all I have.
Is there an executive session?
Yes, please, for litigation.
I do have one more question. I've been wondering this a long, why are we having these meetings at Station 1? Why are we not having them here in council chambers?
I don't know.
Because of the consultants requesting an environment where we have a horseshoe set up tables where everybody's sitting around together facing each other, council and staff. We're going to break down further with pushing tables together and 4 or 5 people working as groups and talking about various issues. So the council
Well, the
be
reason
us
I'm
here.
asking is parking is a problem there.
There's a
And-
big lot across the street, Jan.
Well,
Yeah.
but if the public wants to come, is there enough room to accommodate?
There's a big lot across the street, the left across.
No, I'm talking about inside in the room.
Oh, it's
I don't
big.
know what the room,
It's big.
it's big enough to accommodate people?
Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
There should be enough room.
Okay.
Nothing else? We need a motion to go into executive session? Krista? For
Litigation.
litigation?
Is there a motion?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's in motion and seconded to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which meeting will be adjourned. Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman McFarland?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Odekirk?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Mayor Durrani?
Aye.
Hey, you asked.
Carried.